Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss the basics and essentials of mundane astrology in today's show. Mundane astrology is actually one of the oldest branches of astrology, dating back over 4,000 years to Mesopotamia, when there was a need to track the cycles of developments, to understand if war was approaching, if there would be political upheaval, if there were economic shifts and changes on the horizon. Mundane astrology is focused on what is occurring in a country, region, city, business, or company. It's associated with looking at the energetics of a collective and understanding what are the themes that are present and what are the cycles that are coming through and showing up that we can learn from as well as work with. Mundane astrology is a specialty area of astrology, and it isn't one that I often incorporate into my podcast. For those of you who listen regularly, you might recall there are times that I pull in what's going on in the collective, but it isn't something that I focus on all the time. Rather, the astrology I prefer to bring forward is focused on your personal choices and empowerment, your spiritual growth and intuitive development, as well as where you can intentionally work with the energies that are coming through every week. So I do astrology that's more focused on the individual. Mundane astrology is more vast and is something that many people love and follow. Now, if you're looking for a mundane astrologer to focus on, I recommend Pam Gregory, as she talks about astrology through the lens of global developments regularly. She posts regularly on YouTube and Facebook, and in fact on Facebook, she has multiple posts a day describing world events and developments and how it relates to the current astrology. So I wanted to discuss some of the basics of mundane astrology so that you can understand what it's about and perhaps even apply it to more of your own experiences as well as the world at large. Now, because mundane astrology is one of the oldest branches of astrology, that means we have over 4,000 years of data to look upon where we can track the cycles, themes, and predict what is unfolding or what has the highest probability for happening next. This doesn't mean it's always accurate, and in fact, that's important to note because we are entering a whole new phase of consciousness on this planet that is going to continue to shift the trajectory of our collective consciousness and our collective choices. And so this can take us out of bounds, if you will, of the typical predictions of mundane astrology. And I feel this strongly too as the timelines continue to split. And I believe that the timeline splitting is part of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries that was just exact on February 20th. And that's because Saturn rules the physical, the 3D. It is our reality, what we can see, what we look at, what we are responsible for. Saturn governs time. It is the timekeeper, and it's the time we have in this lifetime to live a full life. And what do we choose to bring into our experience and to create on a daily basis that then creates over time our life? So Saturn is part of the timeline split because Saturn rules density, what is solid and slow, what takes time to evolve. This includes structures, contracts, governments, institutions, restrictions, boundaries, limitations. All of these are some of the main themes of Saturn. So with the conjunction to Neptune, there was a focusing in on what are the new timelines we are powerfully activating and putting energy into. And then we have Neptune also in Aries, that is the slower moving but highly influential timeline of spiritual ascension, limitlessness, transcendence, and dissolving. Neptune in Aries is ushering us into a new spiritual era on the planet, supporting our next level ascension and where we're consciously choosing to go with our energies and by focusing in on what aligns for you. Neptune separates and removes. Neptune creates confusion, illusion, and inspiration. It's connected to intuition, dreams, higher states of consciousness, the unseen realms, all the many unseen realms, as well as multidimensional growth. So you can see here that Saturn and Neptune are very different in their energies and expressions, and they meet up in a conjunction about every 36 years. But this particular conjunction was very impactful because it was at 0 degrees of Aries, the very beginning of the full zodiac wheel. And based on research by Heather Ensworth, the other brilliant astrologer, this hasn't happened for over 6,000 years. So this is a brand new 6,000 year starting point that also signifies how the timelines are splitting with the Saturn timeline and the Neptunian timeline. And that is creating dual experiences of this earth at this time. This is important to note because you're going to find that there are those who heavily identify with the Saturn timeline, and conversely, those who heavily identify with the spiritual development of Neptunian energies. So this is important, especially in mundane astrology, when we're looking at the collective, where things are going, and how we each have our own version of events. We each interpret things based on our own history, knowledge base, belief systems, personal experiences. That creates the lens and filter of how we see the world. Of course, that contributes to our ideology and our worldviews. All of that's very important because our planet Earth is in this little solar system that is always spinning and moving towards the galactic center at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. And the energies there of Sagittarius bring in how do we see what's going on around us. We live in a galaxy that is developing our belief systems. And here on this planet, of course, we have multiple belief systems that coexist all around us, whether you look at them as religion, cultural, spiritual, and or any other umbrella term that signifies there's different beliefs around what is going on in the world. So essentially, this planet is made to be one where we explore coexisting with each other, even though we have different belief systems, different perceptions, and different viewpoints. And of course, all of that contributes then to how we would interpret mundane astrology. And it's actually a very exciting time to be looking at this type of astrology because of how all of the outer planets are moving into new astrological signs. They're entering new territory, and they're all in a very rare alignment that is supportive, dynamic, and very active. That's a big part of the energy signature of 2026. So Pluto is in Aquarius, Neptune and Saturn are now in Aries, and we're going to see Uranus return to Gemini in April, late April 2026. And as Uranus moves into Gemini, there's something that suddenly comes alive, and the pace of life is going to accelerate and begin to actively change in ways we haven't experienced before. And so without wanting to be overwhelming, I'm going to touch on what each of these outer planets rules in mundane astrology, starting with Pluto. And that's because Pluto entered Aquarius back in March 2023 for the first time. And so we can already see what Pluto is powerfully changing and transforming in the collective. And that is part of how Pluto's energy has shifted to focus on the mass systems that Aquarius rules. Now, to be fair, these are all big topics. Each one of these could be its own deep dive. So I'm going to stay more high level here and explain some of the essential themes. But in Aquarius, it is the collective. It's how we are united through various shared passions, activities, hobbies, areas of life. Aquarius is what brings people together. There's diversity here. There's an understanding of differences. There's also the desire to individualize individuate and to own your authenticity with Aquarius energy. So Pluto in Aquarius is asking each of us to power up our individual energies and to see more of who we uniquely are that contributes to the collective. Now, Pluto, of course, does a deep dive. Pluto can make us really uncomfortable as it brings about extremes in fears, emotions, and expressions. And so in mundane astrology, some of the things that Pluto rules includes demolition, domination, coercion, plots, atomic science, nuclear energy, ambushes, riots, crimes, abductions, cremations, mutation and transmutation, the underworld, exploitation, organized crimes, power structures on the planet, including global financial power structures, and the concentration of wealth on the planet. Pluto rules intelligence agencies and their secrets, how they collect information and then use it as they see fit. Pluto represents nuclear power and deep resources, hidden resources, the resources that countries don't fully admit to having access to. Pluto is about the influence of those in charge, elites and monarchs, and those who are essentially at the top of the pyramid who determine what will happen next. Pluto also connects to our collective shadow, what we are all moving through, the same themes, especially these Pluto and Aquarius themes, around what we're understanding about what has been hidden from us for so long. Pluto loves to bring that out to the light of day after it's been hidden, and Pluto reveals those secrets and those truths. So, let me see. Has there been anything in the collective revealing big secrets and hidden systems that is coming to the forefront? Pluto also involves scandal, crisis, terrorists, organized crime, what needs to be purged, destroyed so it can be renewed. It also involves individuals who assist in these levels of transformation, including healers, reform leaders, miners, the FBI, psychologists. I'm sure you can name many other professions that would be connected with these themes, but that is how Pluto is represented in mundane astrology. Now let's move on to Neptune, because Neptune is now in Aries, signaling that we are starting a brand new chapter here in our spiritual growth and individual consciousness. Aries is the beginning of the new chapter, the next steps, the new intentions. And so with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we just had in February, this is a really significant new global beginning that is hard to even contemplate just yet. It's only getting started. We are changing over the energies and consciousness on the planet, and it's going to take time to see evidence and proof of that, which is not something that Neptune rules. Neptune rules what you're feeling and sensing. It connects to the background frequencies that are changing on the planet, and Neptune moves slowly. So these are not things that occur overnight. Rather, there's a gradual progressive shift that we feel, and that's part of the guiding power of Neptune, is that it moves us into new territory while also requiring us to leave behind where we've been. So Neptune moving into Aries means that a new day is dawning, but it can be hard to understand exactly what that is. So we look at what Neptune signifies in mundane astrology to understand the themes that are going to come through in Aries. So Neptune rules areas of our life that can be difficult to grasp and understand. Neptune is about dissolving, confusion, illusions. It also leads us to greater inspiration, intuition, and spiritual understandings. Neptune is meant to take us into the higher realms so that we know that this isn't just about what we can see and touch here in our earthly experiences. Neptune elevates us into a space of timelessness, which makes it very different than Saturn, and wants us to connect with what we're feeling and picking up on that has meaning and is significant, especially at an energetic level. Neptune is the mist, the clouds, the fog, the mirage on the horizon, not knowing what is real and what is not. But in Neptune's energy, it's all real. It all has an energetic signature and a message for you. Neptune rules anything connected to the ocean, escapism, artistic endeavors, fantasy, and what is hidden or in the background. So obviously this is a big category. Here's some key things that Neptune is connected to: drugs, oil, chemicals, gas, alcohol, drugs, addicts, hospitals, deception, embezzling, blackmail, poison, treason, masks, and hidden motivations. Now, on the higher end, Neptune is connected to those who excel in interpreting the unseen. This includes mystics, artists, actors, dancers, film, and music. It's creating something out of what appears to be nothing. It's that hit of inspiration or imagination that gives you a download and a desire to make something real. Those are messages from Neptune. And so as Neptune moves through Aries, we're going to be moving into new creative territory, new understandings of how we are spiritual beings with access to more talents and skills than perhaps we've regularly used before. Neptune in Aries is inviting you forward into new ways of knowing yourself by trusting what you feel, picking up on what's going on in the environment, and knowing that you don't have to see it in order for it to be real. Neptune is also about things that disappear, things that are gone. It also can involve people on the outskirts, those who are homeless, who don't know where to go or don't have a reliable place to be. And so Neptune in mundane astrology shows us what is disappearing or lost, where the transitions are happening, and what we have to let go of in order to work with a season of change. Neptune has been receiving a stabilizing influence from Saturn since it first entered Aries. So in this way, we haven't felt the full effects yet of Neptune in Aries just yet, simply because Saturn has been right there for the past 2 years. Saturn has brought in a grounding influence, reality check, and responsibility. It has required Neptune to look at what is really happening, to not try and escape out the back door. And so we have this ongoing connection between Neptune and Saturn that continues into April 2026. Then Saturn will move ahead and be out of orb from Neptune, no longer conjunct Neptune. And this means that Neptune in Aries will be more fully felt, again, without that serious influence of Saturn. And I mean serious because Saturn is about taking things seriously, but also the conjunction here has been quite influential at the very beginning of Aries energies, as well as the late degrees of Pisces energies. This is where you could feel that you are truly seeing the timeline split in the world, that there is a divide happening that's undeniable, a divide that's based on our own belief systems and perceptions, as well as where we're actively choosing to invest our energy. And I feel that that is one of the main gifts of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. It's saying what is true for you, what aligns with who you are now, what supports you in moving forward into a new chapter in your life that is supporting your growth and your reality. And so this is where we're going to continue to see the split in timelines as Saturn and Neptune separate. Again, it starts to be stronger in April. There's going to be such a clear divide that it's undeniable. And that big chasm that has been forming, and we've been feeling it for a while, but it's going to become even more evident. And I would say that those who are not choosing to evolve, who are choosing to remain in the density of 3D without accessing their spiritual growth potentials, or basically any of the Neptunian offerings that have been in the mix, things are going to start to feel tougher, harder, more dense. There's going to be even more real world consequences that come about. There's going to be more karma and even unexpected developments that maybe perhaps individuals thought they avoided. But no, not with Saturn. So I'm feeling like after April, there is going to be a greater intensity in the energetic divide of the different timelines on the planet, and that those who have not wanted to ascend or who have not given any investment into their own spiritual growth, the density and reality that's going to come about could be quite hard and devastating if they aren't taking responsibility or honoring commitments, which is also what Saturn requires. Saturn is about the law of cause and effect. And so it's not that Saturn is trying to be punishing. Saturn is simply acknowledging, well, this is what you chose. This is what you stood in line for. So here you go. We're serving it up. This is what you wanted. This is what you're getting. So Saturn honors an individual's free will. Saturn at a higher level also honors a leader's free will. And that's because Saturn in mundane astrology is connected to elders, mentors, leaders, those in charge who have a greater responsibility, who have put in more time, energy, and work, who understand more of what's at hand and what's at play. I'm going to talk about Saturn. I will come back to Uranus. I haven't forgotten Uranus. It just seemed to make sense that we move into Saturn now. Saturn is also directly connected to older people, serious people, those who work hard and invest. This can even mean misers and hermits, those who want to be left alone and don't want to socialize. Saturn is connected with discipline, contracts, restraints, the framework and organization of a society, what is prudent, what is responsible. Saturn is also related to those who put in work regularly for their rewards and recognition. This can be the builders, the farmers, employers, administrators, authority figures, those who carry the weight of an organization. And so in mundane astrology, it relates to those systems of authority, the rules that need to be followed, the laws and restrictions and infrastructure. It's about governments and institutions that are in place for a purpose and a reason, where people have to take accountability and be responsible for policies. So this is also where we're going to see institutional reform and structural challenges. We've already been in that energy since certainly 2020, but this is now a new awareness as Saturn is in Aries, bringing our attention to what needs to be reinvented here, what needs to be given a new life and be rebirthed based on what society needs. And so that's going to be a big part of Saturn's 3-year journey through Aries, is that we're going to have, for example, new rules, new policies, new restrictions, new guidance to follow. This, of course, can be good or bad, but that's part of Saturn's domain in Aries, is to bring about where do we need to bring in a new start here that is more effective and more useful. So Saturn and Neptune, both in Aries, signaling a new day is here, and then they both approach the energies of Aries differently in the new starts that are happening on our planet. And of course, I need to mention that yes, Aries can be about war, conflict, military power, what you fight for, competition. It's connected to masculine energy, how we assert ourselves and go after what we want. But with both Saturn and Neptune here, it's not clear. It's not highly evident everything that's going on. Everything that is really transpiring is hidden and shrouded in things that we don't fully know yet. It isn't fully seen. And so if we take this understanding and apply it to the timeline shift, there are those who are going to energize this form of Aries energy, the war and competitive assertiveness, actually more aggressiveness of Aries, while there are others who are going to say, I'm going to choose what's best for me, go my own way, focus on what I believe is essential at this time. And those individuals are not as focused perhaps on the lower expressions of Aries. Rather, they're choosing to invest in themselves and to look at how they are being rebirthed or renewed through these strong Aries energies. And that's not meant to be a form of spiritual bypassing, because there is still an acknowledgement acknowledgement, or can be an acknowledgement of what is unfolding on the planet from a very realistic viewpoint. But there's a sense of empowerment here around where you're going to contribute to collective consciousness. And I just want to say as an aside that on this podcast, we've talked before about how collectively we can influence various weather events. I know we've done that with hurricanes and extreme weather developments. Keep in mind, we can do the same with any energy, any extremes, including war, corruption, aggression, and violence. And so it's our collective consciousness that can send light, peace, and harmony to the places on the planet that need it most. We can do that with our higher consciousness. We can choose that. We can choose to not be in fear or feel that something is being determined only by certain people in charge. We can be in our energetic power and say, well, I'm going to use my intention this way to neutralize energies, to calm them down, to bring about resolution and peace. That will be my focus. So this can certainly be a part of the timeline split here that is happening with Saturn and Neptune. Now let's turn to Uranus. As Uranus finishes up its time in Taurus and fully enters Gemini, April 25th and 26th, 2026. This is where Uranus is going to be much more active and alive in Gemini, where it will affect our Gemini areas of life, including communications, language, transportations, education, local businesses, libraries, restaurants, shops, schools, local colleges, and essentially how we go about our daily lives. So Uranus brings in a pulsing disruption. It activates things to move faster and requires us to adapt to progressive change. Uranus rules revolution, explosions, unexpected events, advanced technology, nonconformity, uprisings, riots, erratic behavior, liberation, autonomy, discovery, electronics, originality, and nonconformity, to name a few themes. Uranus seeks to up-level what has become simple, boring, and predictable. It seeks to change up the status quo, and it's where we can make advancements very rapidly, including quantum leaps and crazy, wild, bizarre advancements. Uranus in Gemini is going to be exposing us to new ways of understanding the history on the planet. For example, more about what has been hidden and removed in mythology, stories, and narratives. It's going to unearth more ancient civilizations and their technologies as well. So we're going to have some new answers and understandings that were previously undocumented or unclear. And as I say that, I'm thinking about the recent discovery of what is underneath the pyramids in Egypt. Beautiful example of Uranus and Gemini, where it's a shocking discovery of use and application of something that's literally been right there in front of us, but now seeing it from a whole new angle and opening up all these new questions and inquiries to figure out and solve. Uranus in Gemini is exciting and excitable. It's also unpredictable and very eccentric. Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius are going to be in a trine off and on through the rest of this decade. That is going to bring about fast moving developments, things that, yes, we can't predict, but they just come about quite quickly. It also means we're going to be advancing in our understanding of other beings on the planet. So this will certainly involve disclosure, ETs, a release of more experiments and lab work, understandings of more who have been on the planet, others who have come and gone from Earth, as well as those who have remained on the planet. We're going to see that we aren't the only inhabitants of the planet, and we're also going to be opening up to our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters from all different places in the galaxy. That is what this energy also signifies. So it will be really wild to see where we're at by 2029, because these are going to be fast-moving communications, announcements, and revelations that could be quite shocking for many, but also beautifully validating for those who have always known the bigger picture, or who at least been curious about the bigger picture of our planet. So Uranus brings about more innovation and upheaval. The scientific breakthroughs are going to increase. We're going to have more aviation and space exploration. Also, radical social movements will be on the rise and will be a part of how we are evolving out of current power structures and dismantling what no longer serves the many. There's a lot of energy here that's activating each of us personally to be aware of what we want on this planet and what we don't want. There's also energetic support here for the evolution of outdated forms of leadership, government, groups, and entities who are not working in the interest of the many. That is going to be a very strong theme here that really picks up through the rest of 2026 and beyond. Uranus can also bring about rapid societal shifts, big changes in our cultural values and our societal norms. And so this is also going to be a part of what we're going to be seeing and witnessing, is that what was once previously acceptable will no longer be okay. And there will be uprisings around that. People are going to take a stand. There's going to be more who speak up and who have a lot to say around what is unjust and no longer acceptable. So all of this is highly activating energy, and it means that we're moving into a chapter that we've never experienced, especially not in this lifetime. And so we are here for it, right? As a soul, you chose to be here, whether you remember that or not. But all of this signifies that humanity is going to be changing in rapid, exceptional ways. And this could be exactly what we have been waiting for in terms of the changes we're ready for that have been stalled, resisted, impossible perhaps, especially when you bring in methods of control over the masses. So how the population has been controlled through various means, that alone could be its own episode. But this is understanding that these energies are activating progressive, dynamic, forward-moving change that at an individual level, we are each feeling and sensing. And so those are the main themes of these outer planets in mundane astrology. They signify global shifts, political upheavals, where there will be a lot of energy from the collective. It gives us an understanding that the world events that will be happening are going to take us into brand new territory, new issues to solve, new social movements to be aware of, and that all of this is part of the cosmic energy that the Earth is feeling at this time. Now, what I'll do is a part 2 on this topic. Since I only covered Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, we also have the personal planets to look at, plus Jupiter and Chiron. So there is more to cover, but I'm noticing the time here and I don't want to make this episode too long. But I wanted to bring this to your awareness because, again, these are the themes that you're probably already noticing, feeling, and experiencing. And as all of these outer planets move into fire and air signs, there is a rapid increase in how they are experienced, the rate of information and communication that's coming through, as well as how quickly things can change on the world stage. And that will be a big part of this year. There will be some shocking developments, some fast moving, stunning news, some collapses, some difficult developments. And so one of the best things we can do is understand, what do you need in order to care for yourself and your loved ones and others as we each move through this time of rapid change? Meaning, what do you need at a very basic level that grounds you, nourishes you, and supports you? Perhaps you need some deep breathing techniques, or a way to just move the energy, to get on the treadmill, to go for a walk, to move through any kind of body movement that allows you to release anger, anxiety, nervousness, uncertainty. We're going to need to care for ourselves more responsibly and to have our go-to methods for handling fast-moving dynamic world changes that we've literally never experienced before. And so just like you might have a stash of items in the closet that you use for first aid, emergency food, emergency water, you're also going to want to have your go-to practices for when there are elevated emotions, intense collective experiences happening all around you, and have some things that you turn to stabilize your energy field, but to work with it honestly. Meaning, if you need to go through an intense workout because of the adrenaline that's pumping, then that's what you do, right? If you need to go for a long walk, put on your headphones, listen to music, like whatever you need to do to move energy through you is going to be important this year. So do keep that in mind and do think of that. Like it's just something good to have front of mind right now, because events are going to continue to accelerate. And one of the best things you can do for yourself that you are in charge of is caring for your energy and noting how to help and support others do the same. This is also how we amplify our human hearts, our connection, our empathy, our ability to support and care for one another, and know that ultimately we're all in this together. So this would be one thing to simply think about for yourself and have in place as needed. So I will come back and do a second episode for you discussing more of these major themes in mundane astrology, as I hope this helps you hone in on whatever you are believing and perceiving in the world at large, as well as how to take care of yourself through these accelerated times. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for a new podcast episode, and I look forward to continuing this topic with you. Keep in mind that on Wednesday's show, I do the weekly astrology of what's going on, so I'll pick up this topic either on Friday or next Monday. So wishing you a beautiful day ahead. As always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you back here soon.